Welcome to the Living Out podcast, helping people, churches, and society talk about faith and sexuality.
Welcome to this Christmas special episode of the Living Out podcast. I'm Ashley, I'm going to be your host today. It's a dubious honour, and I say this because I have not two, but three of my colleagues that I'm going to have to try and corral like a herd of cats through the next half hour or so. But it is lovely to see you all. Andrew, Andy, Ed, thanks for joining me today.
It is great to be with you.
Should you give me something more festive than a herd of cats? What's the festive equivalent?
Herd of turkeys?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Sort of heading to a demise.
More accurate, probably,
Yes.
more turkey-like.
Is that an image of what's going to happen in this podcast? The same sort of things that happens to turkey at Christmas is going to happen to us. That's a lovely image to start with, Ashley.
That is. Let's move on from it, though, Andy. I'm going to ask you a different question, lest we go too far down that particular train of thought. What is your favourite part of Christmas dinner? Please don't say turkey, having just said what you've said about turkeys.
Well, I love the fact that my parents will have the same conversation about Christmas pudding that they've had, I think, every year for the last, I don't know how many years. And I really love the fact that they have it. It's always one... Basically, my mum goes to great effort, does it properly, and then my dad will always go, oh, only a small bit, and she'll go, but I thought you liked Christmas pudding, and he'll go, not really, and they just do it every year, and it's lovely. And I'm looking forward to the repeat this year, and I think they do it not particularly consciously, but I just love it. It's I'd put a little wry smile on and enjoy it every time.
Fantastic. Is there any chance you could record it surreptitiously so we can tag it on to the end of this episode and allow our listeners to enjoy that moment as well?
Well, the problem is it could be undermined if my mum is listening to this recording and now performs it. That's the risk. That's the risk we're taking.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Stay tuned. Andrew, what's your favourite part of Christmas dinner?
Well, I might have said turkey, because I'm a fan of turkey. Turkey is quite divisive as to whether or not it's a good meat. I'm a big fan of turkey. But instead, therefore, I'll go for stuffing. I love stuffing. When I was a poor student, and actually a poor assistant pastor, I would buy stuffing and just bake stuffing and eat it like a biscuit. I'm quite a big fan of stuffing. Yeah, so it's a highlight of the Christmas dinner for me.
It's like a modern day version of Charles Dickens's Christmas Carol. the young Andrew Bunt. The tiny Tim of the Living Out staff team. Having a Christmas with just one little ball of stuffing.
Does that mean you're Scrooge then, Ed?
Well, most definitely. You should speak to the staff team here at Emmanuel Bristol. I have auditioned for that role many a year.
Amazing. Andy, is it turkey for you as well?
Well, no, I mean, it would probably be the sort of pigs in blankets, because it's the kind of thing you don't eat really any other time of the year. So yeah, I love pigs in blankets. It's basically anything that isn't sprouts, really. So anything that is not sprouts is a wonderful aspect to Christmas dinner.
I have to agree with you on the sprout thing. My favourite thing, though, is roast potatoes. I just can't get enough of roast potato. I can't get enough of potatoes, full stop. You know, we could have a debate about the best way to cook a potato, but let's not. Let's move on and actually talk about what we're supposed to be talking about in this episode. So, I'm going to ask all of you, for starters, what is it about the Christmas story that most connects with you or that most helps you? And that might be in terms of sexuality, since this is the Living Out podcast, or just in your wider life of faith. What is it about the Christmas story that's really singing to you this year? Andrew, I'm going to start with you.
Ooh. I think it's just the core idea of the incarnation, the idea that God takes on flesh, and as part of that, experiences what human life is really like. And that helps with my sexuality, but more broadly in life as well, just of realising Jesus really can relate. Even to Earth in real life this morning, was feeling quite down about some friendship complexities, and was just really struck reading the Gospels that, Jesus had friends. He knows the up and downs of friendship. He knows what I'm feeling. He knows that from the inside, as it were. And it's so comforting to think, actually, God, in the person of Jesus, not only does the wonderful, most important work of the atonement to restore us relationship with him through the sending of his son as a man, but also experiences the ups and downs of human life, and therefore, as Hebrews says, really can be truly sympathetic, understanding, and that's just such a wonderful thing. Actually, that our God is a God who, from the inside, knows the ups and downs of human life. And I think Christmas makes me think of that because it helpfully presents to us the wonder of the incarnation, Jesus coming to very normal life in that way. So yeah, that hugely encourages me.
Thank you. Andy, has Andrew stolen your answer?
Yes, probably. But yeah, no, Jesus' humanity is glorious. I mean, I think the two names that Jesus is given in Matthew 1 have always meant a lot to me. So actually, the very name Jesus, meaning essentially God's the rescue, the one who comes to save his people from their sins. And, whether it's sexuality or anything else, I guess most of us will be aware the last year will have contained failures, even at the sort of thought life level. And it is glorious that there is one who comes to save us completely and fully. So just Jesus' name, and of course he's then Emmanuel, so he is the God who is with us. And I think if I press into those two names, he really has saved me fully, and he really is with me. Life is very different, sexuality included, when I've grasped those two great realities.
Beautiful. Ed?
Well, in some ways, we're recording this away, sometime before Christmas, and I'm actually, in some ways, just looking forward to what God's going to remind me about himself this coming Christmas. And I'm not sure, but I know what it was last Christmas. And it's the imagery of Christmas, particularly the imagery around the light shining the darkness. And last year, I really enjoyed just meditating on John chapter 1, verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And particularly in those times when actually it feels sometimes as if the world is getting darker, and actually to know that the light is not going to be overcome by the darkness. And because there are so many lights at Christmas around the place, to have that constant, a little sort of trigger as you walk along a high street with Christmas lights, or you see the Christmas lights going on in other people's sort of houses, bay windows on my street, is just to constantly be reminded that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. I love that reality, and I love the imagery and the constant reminders you get out of that over the Christmas season. What about you, Ashley?
I think for me, it's, again, the humanity of Jesus. So the last couple of years I've spent living with some very tiny humans. My niece is 3, my nephew's 1 and a bit. And so have just seen them kind of at the most vulnerable that you can be as a human being. Like as newborns, you're just completely helpless, completely vulnerable. And knowing that Jesus took on that willingly, I find very comforting when I feel vulnerable in whatever sense, in terms of sexuality or in wider life. But just also knowing that, yeah, Jesus understands that, but he is also the king of everything. He is the light that shines in the darkness. He is all these amazing things we've been talking about. And so in my vulnerability, he is strong and he is powerful and he is able to help me. So it's both those aspects that I find, particularly strike me around Christmas.
Hello, this is Ed, interrupting your enjoyment of a Living Out podcast. I'm very sorry, but it is to invite you to join our mailing list so that you can hear more about what Living Out is up to, both through this podcast and through everything that happens on our website and in the real world too. The way you can do that is by going to the website and just scrolling down to the bottom of any page, and there's something that says stay in the loop, and all you need to do is provide us your name and email and your consent, and then we will very happily keep you in contact with everything that happens at Living Out. Now back to enjoying that podcast.
So let's turn to some kind of practicalities around how we do Christmas then. Kind of just want to ask each of you about your own experiences of Christmas. So maybe about not having this kind of traditional nuclear family Christmas where we're with our spouses and our children, which none of us have. So what is Christmas like for you guys? What's been good or not so good about your experiences of Christmas as single people? And Ed, I will start with you.
Well, obviously, I mean, I do love the fact that I've got some of my own traditions going. So I have 3 Christmas baubles that I put up on the twigs. And I've got these sort of, I don't ever have a Christmas tree, but I have these sort of 4 or 5 sort of big twigs with lights on, and I put my 3 baubles up, and I enjoyed that. And then in the week, or the few days just before Christmas, I will of course be watching the BBC TV children's drama from the 1980s that is the Box of Delights.
It's come up again.
I forgot about this. I blocked it out.
Long-term listeners to this podcast will know that this is one of the joys of my Christmas, and I love doing that in the run-up to Christmas. Really gets me in the Christmas feel. So those are some of my own personal traditions, and that would be lovely. Having said that, Christmas can be difficult as a single person, and actually what's going to be particularly difficult for me this year, and I think Christmas often is a reminder of those who are no longer here. I used to, every Christmas Eve, meet up with a single friend of mine who died early this year in her early 80s, Ruth. We used to always spend Christmas Eve together when we could, COVID lockdowns accepting, and yeah, we used to have a lovely evening of just enjoying a meal together. We used to sort of share the Lord's Supper together, and we used to just pray for each other, remember Christmas, and be grateful for the first Christmas, but also just share some of the challenges about being single at Christmas. Just before we, both went in different directions on Christmas Day. I'm going to really miss that this year. But it was a lovely little tradition that I had got going with her. And I've got to think of probably a similar one, actually. Who are the other single people that might this Christmas Day enjoy a bit of company, Christmas Eve, enjoy a bit of company, because just that gift of a regular habit over the last 10 years with another single person who we could just laugh and cry and have a good little sort of chat about Christmas. But what's particularly hard about being single at Christmas was something I've really enjoyed. I'm going to miss this Christmas. Need to find a replacement soon.
Thank you, Ed. Andrew, what's Christmas like for you? What kind of traditions do you have?
Yeah, I think I need to develop more personal traditions. I've got very good examples like Ed has. I was thinking, I used to every year read Dickens' Christmas Carol, and I'll get out of the habit of doing that. I think I might revive that this year. I was kind of really thinking that. I think on challenges me, I think the challenge I find with Christmas is how I feel, it's the time of the year I feel conscious of not having a spouse and children, and therefore just feel different. I feel a bit odd one out, and I have to just watch what's going on in kind of my heart and mind and my feelings around that. And I do take proactive steps, like I don't go on social media on Christmas Day itself, just because I have found over the years it's so easy for me to be comparing my day with other people's days and my kind of whole experience of life being in a different situation as someone who's single with other people, which hasn't been helpful. So I found things like that just kind of helpful to avoid that. But then on the blessing side, I'm in the kind of very privileged position that I have families kind of fighting over me for Christmas, which I share in a sense, knowing that for many single people that wouldn't be the case, and want to be aware of the kind of sensitivities and the difficulty Christmas sometimes is, but also to cast vision and hope of church family really can work as family. So already this year, there are 3 different families who have asked me if and when I'm joining them around Christmas. 2 of those are families I'm not biologically related to at all. And I will have the great tension, actually, of trying to see everyone, keep everyone happy, and would love to spend time with all of them. So it's that difficulty, actually, of having too many options, which is lovely, but also the difficulty of how do we honour both church family and biological family, both of which are good gifts from God, both of which I feel a sense of obligation to seek to honour and love in that way. So that'll be something I'll be wrestling with. And something I've done in my own family, with my own biological family, my parents and my brother, is actually to kind of slightly to lay down the challenge of who could we invite in. There are only 3 of us. We don't really have much in the way of wider family. There are no children in the family. And so actually kind of saying, how could we be a blessing to other people who might be isolated and lonely? And once or twice over the years, we've done that. And actually, it's been really lovely, and to think we can be a blessing. And I've kind of done it partly thinking I want us to be the kind of family who will be looking out for people like me particularly when I'm quite a bit older. I think lots of us have these fears of when I'm an old person, as a single person, what will Christmas be like? I want right now to be part of the answer and part of church being a family. So older people who maybe are living on their own, are on their own a lot, don't feel alone at Christmas. So kind of have tried to foster and model something of that in my own family as well.
That's really great. I've been on the other side of that, where my family have kind of challenged me in that regard. I don't like change. And so we have these kind of nuclear family traditions, my parents and my brother and me, that things that we would do at Christmas. But like life changes, and we're not 10 anymore and things like that. So we've now got my brother's wife and kids who will come and spend Christmas with us as well. It'd be weird if they didn't. Or sometimes they'll be at her parents for Christmas Day itself, and it will just be me and my parents in our house, things like that. But then also over the years, just we've had different friends or different family members, similar to you've described, Andrew, kind of different people coming to join us for the day, whether that's single people or more elderly relatives or friends who I've had a friend join us for Christmas Day once who her family were in America and she just couldn't get back there for Christmas, and so was facing a lonely Christmas by herself. So we had her come and join us. And even though when I was younger, I was very reluctant to have that happen because I was very set in my ways and enjoyed our traditions, there was actually so much good that came out of that. And it was a different day, but it was still a really good day. And I actually really enjoyed inducting new people into some of our odd family traditions, like just the different things that we do during the day that you don't realise are odd until you start trying to explain them to somebody else. So that's kind of been my experience of Christmas. Is it is fairly nuclear family focused still. I have the blessing of still having both my parents with us, but yeah, still beginning to draw in more and more people, which I think is really precious. Andy, I know that your Christmas experiences have also mainly been with your nuclear family. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so in my case, my parents live about sort of 3 hours away, and I guess for me, most of my life is investing in church family. Most of my life is spending time with them, and so actually, if I'm honest, I've deliberately said Christmas is largely about me honouring nuclear family. So it is largely going away, generally not seeing many friends over Christmas because parents now live in an area where I didn't grow up, so I don't really know anybody other than my parents where I'll be for Christmas. And I guess that's just part of a wider biblical theme, I guess. Living out, I think rightly, we've often wanted to push against the sort of idolization of nuclear family and argue for the importance of church family and so on. I think that's right. I guess it's probably worth noting that in wanting to talk about church family, that doesn't actually obliterate our responsibilities to our nuclear family. And so we are still called to honour parents, particularly as they get older and so on. And so for me, Christmas has been the time where probably it is the time in the year where I say, okay, nuclear family is where I need to invest my time and energy. But it will be different for different people. So where actually idolization of nuclear family is our temptation, it's good to learn the opposite lesson and say, okay, how can we push into church family at this time of the year?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, isn't it? It is going to be different for different people, and it is just kind of looking at our lives, looking at our hearts, thinking, how can I honour and bless my nuclear family and the goodness that God has given me in that, but I need to do exactly the same with my church family, and think of those who may not have any plans over Christmas and how that's going to be for them, and yeah, maybe drawing those in as is right.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you all. Right, let's move to talking about New Year, because it's not just Christmas that can be difficult for single people. We've got a blog by Danny Trueek on our website where she talks about how New Year is the loneliest day of the year for her as a single person who lives alone. I actually would like to read a few sentences from it. She says, "It's the one night of the year when sitting by myself on my couch becomes unbearably loaded with the emotional weight of what was, what could have been, what is, and what isn't. I don't want to have to sit with that emotional weight all alone. I want to share it a little with others, and I want them to share theirs a little with me. And then I want us to distract each other so that we don't just keep sitting with that emotional weight, so that we can indeed welcome in the new year." Ed, I will turn to you. Do you have any advice for anyone who might be feeling this way and resonate with what Danny's written?
Yeah, what I've done with two other single friends for the last, I think probably, again, 10 or so New Years, apart from even all the COVID years apart from one of them when we weren't allowed to do it, we've just basically spent New Year together. And that's just been a wonderful thing that we've done. So yeah, three single friends. We just recognised that New Year was, particularly hard. In fact, one of my friends, the year after both her parents had died, so the first Christmas after both her parents died, we just started to do this tradition of spending New Year together. We have the luxury and joy of being able to do that in a different European city every year. Actually, apart from the year my passport went out of date. Again, sad story. We haven't got the time to go into that. But otherwise, we've done it. And it's just meant that we're not sitting on a sofa feeling sad about ourselves. We're usually enjoying the New Year traditions in some European city. In fact, this year it's Spain, and so we'll be doing the usual thing, which is them all trying to kill each other by... you have this tradition in Spain of putting 12 grapes into your mouth on New Year's as the clock strikes, which seems to be the best way of basically ending your life at the beginning of the new year. So we just I put 2 in and leave it at that. But the point is basically spending time with friends and being proactive, and that is... something I'm probably not good at. My tendency is if left to myself, I will be sitting on the sofa feeling all tragic. The great thing about these other friends is that they said, "Come on, let's be proactive, let's do something." And for us, it's a bit of a highlight. And actually, we're some of the annoying people. We always put photos of ourselves on social media, really enjoying ourselves in some really nice European city, in perhaps a slightly ungodly way that is competitive to all our married friends who are stuck at home with their children playing board games.
Outstanding. Many life lessons we can take from that, I think. But I won't even try to summarise. Instead, I will move us on, and I'll say, Andrew, have you got any advice for friends of single people? So not even single people themselves, but those who know others who are single and might be feeling, again, as Danny described in that blog.
I guess the really practical thing is just to think about, well, checking in with single friends. Have they got plans? Could they join you? Doesn't mean you need to lay on a huge party, but actually it's inviting them to spend the evening with you if that's what they'd like to do, and making sure they know, there are open doors to them, there are options to them. And sometimes we can overlook those really simple but hugely significant and meaningful things we can do. We're just having that conversation and inviting people into our lives and what we're doing. And I wonder also just that thing of being aware that it can be a kind of emotionally difficult time for single people, and actually of course for lots of people, lots of different reasons, and just asking people how they find New Year's, not in a kind of leading question way of, obviously New Year's Eve is really difficult for you because you're single, but just a genuinely open, inquisitive question. How do you find New Year's? What do you normally do? And someone might then choose to share that maybe they do find it quite difficult, and that's a chance just to love someone and to talk about whether you can help them and give them a place to be and some community this New Year. So maybe just starting that conversation of genuine inquisitiveness, how do you find New Year, could be a good way of then seeing how you could best support and love your single friends at that point.
And can I add just something about actually post-Christmas and New Year? I think one of the ways we can help each other is when we ask people about Christmas and New Year. That's what happens in it. As soon as people are back at work in January or back at church in January, there's sort of, how was Christmas? And often the expectation is you're going to say, it was absolutely wonderful, and share stories. And I think when it has perhaps been a particularly difficult time for somebody because they're single or because this has been the first Christmas without somebody significant, actually one of the things we can do is be quite sensitive in the questions we ask people that we know and love about their Christmas, about New Year. And I often ask people, did you survive it? Did you survive Christmas and New Year? Because that often just gives people the opportunity to, and if they had a lovely time, they'll still tell you they had a lovely time. But actually, if it was a really difficult time, it gives them the opportunity to say, no, actually, Christmas Day was really tough without Mum, or just as I really struggled at New Year, as like I normally do. And just giving people the permission to reflect on Christmas and New Year being difficult, and actually then being really glad that they're back at work or really glad that church has got back to normal, can be really important. So just think about the post-New Year, post-Christmas conversations that allow people to share what really went on rather than pretending it was an absolutely wonderful time.
I think that's really important, actually. And I think for many of us, we're still stuck in sort of memories of a child at 6 where, I don't know, maybe obviously people have had different childhood experiences, but for many as a child, there will be that sense of, hey, it was wonderful. And I think for me, actually, one of the key lessons to learn has been, as an adult, it's much trickier, lower expectations as to what this is going to be like. But probably that means also that will just impact the conversations that we have. Funnily enough, as I speak to most adults and we have an honest conversation, most of us find Christmas quite hard work, even those married with kids, because it's manic and they've got 2 sets of in-laws who are busy timing how much time they spend precisely with each group of relatives. And I just think, in a sense, holding on to the glories of Christmas in terms of Jesus coming, but actually for all of us being slightly more realistic about some of the tensions we all experience around that time of year, I suspect is quite useful, actually.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Is there anything else on Christmas, New Year that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to say?
I mean, I suppose the only thing I would add is the thing that's helped me most at New Year has actually been holding on to the fact that Emmanuel isn't just a Christmas thing, in as much as there probably are, just because of the way life has worked. There have been a number of New Years I have spent on my own, perhaps because it was a Saturday night and I was working Sunday morning and everybody else was away. And actually the thing that's got me through has been, actually, I'm not ultimately alone. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not to deny everything we've just said previously in terms of it's good to have people around, it's good to check in with people who might be alone. But funnily enough, spiritually, there have been some of the best times where I've actually consciously thought, right, this could be hard, I will feel on my own, but this probably is a good time to actually consciously think, are there things I can pray and thank the Lord for over the past year? Can I pray about the year ahead? And so if all that we've said doesn't work, and for whatever reason you find yourself on your own on New Year's Eve, just to remember you're not ultimately alone, and actually consciously pressing into the Lord is with us might be what we need to do at New Year.
And it's also fine to go to bed at 10 o'clock. Last year, when I did have the tragedy of not being let out of the country because my passport had expired or wasn't within some sort of date thing that I still don't understand and get quite cross about. But last year actually I was here, and we did go out. I did go out for a meal with friends, but we all agreed actually that none of us wanted to stay up to midnight, and so we all went home at 10 o'clock, and I slept through the change into 2024, and it was beautiful. So I think just one of the things we can do is you do not have to sit up on your sofa. You can go to bed and sleep the night through and wake up in 2025.
But surely you then miss out on more hours to look at your twigs with their baubles, which I'm
I will send you all a picture of my twigs and baubles as part of the sort of the Christmas, the Christmas cheer that I'm always very good at exuding throughout December.
Well, between Andrew eating his stuffing balls and your twigs, we really are flourishing as a living out team at Christmas, aren't we?
We are beautifully.
I think we should end this here. Thank you guys so much. So lovely to hear from you, even in the insanity of it at times. And thank you to everybody who has been listening to this episode. We hope it's been helpful to you. We'll put Danny's blog, a link to that, in our show notes, and a few other resources that we've got around Christmas as well that will hopefully be helpful to you. Thank you for listening. Enjoy Christmas. Enjoy your New Year. Subscribe, share, rate our podcast, and we'll be back again next year with a brand new series. So we'll see you then. Bye for now.